Welcome to Keep Your Thriving Alive. I'm Mark Mulligan, and this is the space where I share tips, techniques and inspiration to boost your mood, your energy and your well-being. Today we're going to be exploring the connection between having a sense of purpose in the work that you do and experiencing greater well-being for yourself. I'm delighted to be joined by Nicki Fisher. Nicki managed the Pret Foundation, the charitable arm of Pret Manger, for 15 years. Its aim is super simple: to alleviate poverty by helping break the cycle of homelessness and reoffending. Hello.
Hi there.
So, Nicki, I'm thinking about Pret, and 30 years ago, they were at the absolute forefront of thinking about social responsibility and particularly thinking about working with homeless people and ex-offenders. Can you tell me a bit about your role in bringing that vision to light?
Well, the remit of the Pret Foundation was all about alleviation of poverty, in particular homelessness and helping ex-offenders. So I really wanted to try and bring that remit alive and really worked on three main things. So firstly, working with Pret Manger to ensure that the unsold food at the end of the day was given directly to people who really need it. Secondly, ensuring that financial support was given to people who needed that support. But thirdly, and I think probably most importantly, providing employment so that people could turn their lives around once and for all.
And that's providing employment for people who are homeless or people who are ex-offender?
Quite often they can be the same. Sure. When you're homeless, you don't have a fixed address. Quite often you can't get a bank account because you don't have a fixed address. And then to try and get a job is very difficult if you don't have a bank account. So we felt about 14 years ago now that it was about time that these people were given a chance. So we set up an employment programme called the Rising Stars programme, and that really to enable people to come through the door and be given a second chance.
And all of the many things that you've done, because you talked about the various different aspects of the foundation and what it is that you've done, what's the thing that you're most proud of?
I'd have to say it's the Rising Star programme, an employment programme to get homeless people back into work, to give them all the skills that they need so that they can function and get back into the community and stand on their own 2 feet again, really. That's the thing I'm most proud of, because I've really seen people flourish by doing that 3-month programme.
You mentioned that 550 people have been through the programme. Like, what proportion of those people, once they've been through the programme, are offered a full-time job?
The vast majority are. So 80 to 85% are offered a job, and that's mainly down to the amount of support they're given throughout the programme. So they'll get all sorts of mentoring, counselling, group sessions, any sorts of courses that will help them with their self-esteem, etc. So it's a really high percentage of people who get work, which is what it's all about. You don't want people to fail, you want people to succeed.
I remember seeing some statistics around reoffending where people coming out of prison normally reoffend between 40 and 50% of the time, but the people that you work with, none of them reoffend. Like, they permanently come out of that cycle of reoffending.
It really does mean that once they're out of that system, it changes them and puts them on a different trajectory altogether, away from the people that are a bad influence, working in an environment which is really nurturing and looking after them and supportive and helping them to stand on their own 2 feet. So that going back on that road isn't attractive anymore.
So of all of the rising stars that you've helped, can you tell us the story about one that's particularly touched you?
So many, many different people. But I suppose one of the ones that really sticks with me, I'll change her name, is a girl called Kathy, who originally came from Bangladesh. And she was a young gay woman in Bangladesh. And in that country, it's a Muslim country, being gay is a big no-no. And because of her sexuality, she was pushed in front of a car. And she sustained absolutely horrendous injuries, and she nearly died, and she had to flee the country. So she came to the UK and ended up homeless here in the UK as well, which had terrible sort of self-loathing, really low self-esteem. And luckily came across a charity that the Pret Foundation works with, and we met her. And she has now been working at Pret for 3 years, and she is a different person. So she wouldn't say boo to a goose before, and I saw her about 3 weeks ago, She came down to my place in East Sussex where we're running a project, and she was just flourishing, a completely different person. So that's just one out of literally hundreds.
So how do you think that doing a job where you get to live your purpose has an impact on your own personal well-being?
Well, I've been really lucky to be doing a job where I feel like I've got a purpose and I'm making a difference. I suppose when I was a bit younger, before I came to work for the charitable sector, I was doing all sorts of different jobs, but this one really gave me a sense of well-being. And I think that's what it's all about. It makes me feel like I want to get up in the morning and do something that is really worthwhile. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It makes everyone feel good when you're helping each other out.
No,
that's what human beings are supposed to do, help each other.
In his book Drive, Daniel Pink talks about 3 motivators that we have in the workplace. The first is autonomy, being set targets and then being left to your own devices about how it is that you actually deliver on them. The second one is mastery, that as human beings we have an innate desire to get good at things just for the sake of getting good at them. And the third one is purpose, where he says that as human beings we want to contribute to something that is greater than ourselves. How do you see that playing out in the wider Pret?
I think that's a really interesting one. I think it's quite difficult to quantify it, but I've got lots of anecdotal feedback, I guess, from the teams within Pret who have told me over the years how engaged they are with the work of the Pret Foundation, not just because food's given away at the end of the day to people who need it and financial support, but in particular the Rising Stars programme, because the teams are involved with the care and training of that rising star. So they feel very much part of it and they feel like they're contributing in some way. And that makes them feel good. Yeah. And if they're happy at work, they're going to stay at work longer, they're going to be more committed to the business. So again, it's a win-win for everybody.
I'm a big fan of Pret, both as a consumer and the food that you create, but also of the things that you do. And one of the things that I love is the joy of Pret. That thing where everybody who works on the counter is given an allowance of free coffees that they can give away every day. And when I get one of those free coffees, I have to admit that it has a disproportionate impact on me. I mean, it's not like I can't afford a cup of coffee, but when I get a free one, it just gives me this feeling of joy. I feel unexpectedly happy and buoyant, and it becomes contagious. It's like all of my interactions then after that are better as a result of it.
It's total random acts of kindness. Yeah. And that, it's much more powerful than being given a stamp for your next free coffee when you come into a Pret. It makes you feel absolutely fantastic, and you're then more likely to go on and do a kind deed for somebody else. And it works really well. The team feel empowered. It encourages engagement with customers, and it's really natural.
So for somebody watching this today, and maybe they're curious about what it is that they can do in their work environment, how it is that they can inspire their leaders to have a greater sense of purpose in terms of what their organisation does, what advice would you have for them?
Really, you've got to just get out there and do it. So if you believe in something, surround yourself by people who may feel the same way, and don't be afraid. Just take the bull by the horns and get things moving.
Nicki, you've done amazing things during your time at Pret, and it must have been an absolute wrench to leave, but you're going on to things that are even more exciting going forward. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I've always had a great passion for nature, for animals, and just an innate knowledge that connecting with nature heals in some way and makes you feel good. So I've wanted to try and bring the two things together, really. So we've set up a project called the Fisherwood Farm Project, whereby people can come and spend time in the countryside with nature and animals to reconnect and get well again.
Fantastic. And I know that you're doing work already with the Rising Stars and the Shooting Stars, and in some instances I understand that you're taking people to your farm who've never been outside of a city before.
Absolutely.
I remember a few years ago I had a coaching supervisor, and the first time that we met he asked me this question, which was, what is it that you can uniquely do, Mark, that the world tomorrow needs? And initially I was quite annoyed about it because I thought, I've only just met you and you're asking me this huge question. But it's something that I've been playing with in my mind ever since. What's the change that I want to actually see in the world, and how do I want to be part of that? And where am I uniquely placed to make that difference?
You've hit the nail on the head there. You've got to really tap into what moves you, what stirs your heart, what makes you want to help in some way or change something in some way. You know, I didn't sort of suddenly have a light bulb moment at 18 and know that I wanted to help homeless people or animals, etc. But it's come to me over the years. And once you realise what that is and you've tapped into it, then you can go and find like-minded people, you can go and volunteer, you can go and work in that sector, you can come up with new ideas, you can be an entrepreneur, but you've got to tap into what moves you.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a pragmatic approach, because it's not that you know on day one what you want to do or how you're going to map out the rest of your life in terms of living your purpose, but it's just that next step. And the first step is, what do you care about? You know, what's the thing that upsets you that you'd like to change in the world? And then put your focus and your attention there. Yeah. And then that path will open up to you.
And maybe to match it with what you're good at as well, because there's so many things in the world that you may want to change or you think aren't right or you can be really passionate about. But finding that one thing that you feel that you can really make a difference in and utilise your own skills and passion for that.
Nicki, it's been an absolute pleasure to spend this time with you. You know, the first time that we met, I stalked you because I'd heard about the amazing work that you do. And for me, what you've done is so big and so bold and so brave. It's just an absolute inspiration. So thank you very much. So I hope that was useful to spend some time reflecting on how living your purpose at work can lead to a greater sense of well-being for you personally, and some practical steps that you might take to start making that happen. If you're interested in getting in touch with Nicki, you can contact her via our website, which is www.fisherwoodfarm.co.uk. I hope this has been useful for you. I'm really interested to hear what you think. Please leave your comments in the section below, letting us know what it is that you found most useful and what action it is that you're going to take. I look forward to seeing you next month, and in the meantime, be well and thrive.